Bill Gates is making butter from carbon in the atmosphere. I want to play with you a short clip from this video. I think it's really interesting. Bill Gates doesn't look the best. He has a classic dad bod, but he's making butter and other discretionary food items from carbon in the atmosphere. So animals are no longer needed to make ice cream, cookies, pastries, or butter. Let's check out this recent clip from YouTube.
That's great. Agricultural emissions are one of the most difficult to get rid of. People have come up with alternative food, but what we're seeing is that it's hard to get more than a small market share. And those foods just don't taste the same. Savers.
I want to pause right there. What he said was very businesslike. There was nothing related to human health. He said it's hard to get more than a small market share. I think that's important context as we go on here.
Savers made an advance in the chemistry. It's ultra different in terms of the environmental footprint, but it's as good as those real animal fats.
At Savor, we've been really excited to explore a new technical approach to making food.
I thought this video would be interesting, but kind of don't like the way this guy made his format. Like, why is the whole screen his face and then a small square is the video? It should be the other way around, but anyways.
That does not require vast amounts of land or animal suffering. It doesn't, produce greenhouse gases. It's a totally non-agricultural.
So there's a lot of emotional hot buttons there. We're not only talking about food. They mentioned animal suffering, greenhouse gases. So this is a common argument for people that are against animal products, is they sort of have multiple arguments blended into one. It's hard to really just talk about nutrition. They don't like to talk just about the nutritional qualities and the differences. They like to blend in all these issues and emotional hot buttons to make it sort of controversial. And then if you just disagree with one aspect, the lack of essential micronutrients like vitamin A, zinc, iron, B12, creatine, carnitine, taurine, once you start talking about nutrients, then the conversation shifts to animal suffering. And you say, well, if we do this humanely in a regenerative agricultural system, they say, well, but what about climate change? So the argument is constantly, it's hard to have a logical conversation with these people. So I just wanted to point that out, because I think that is a common thread when you're talking with people about the facts. And this is a health channel. We talk about the nutritional differences here. That's what we're focusing on, is health outcomes. But they blend in climate change. But I will add, if you look at this image here, the differences in terms of greenhouse gas emissions from feedlot beef versus beef made from cattle who are grazing on grass and eating how animals should be eating, how ruminant animals should be eating, there's a net negative in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, lower than plant-based meat alternatives. So again, there is a solution here if we want to focus on regenerative agriculture, but that never really gets brought up because there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of investment in these alternatives, which again, if we let history play out, we've seen this narrative before, my friends. Lest I remind you about cottonseed oil. This was a novel food product that no one had ever eaten. It took 90 years for us to realize that the trans fatty acids in cotton oil are very harmful for human health as well, and more specifically to the health of the heart. But let's hear more from Bill Gates.
On agricultural method for producing food, the fats that Savor makes are made by a thermochemical process. They are the only foods in the world so far that are made entirely without photosynthesis.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong with making foods from carbon in the atmosphere? Well, as I mentioned, sometimes we forget about the food matrix. If we just take carrot extract, it's a little bit different from eating the whole carrot, right? I think we've seen this story play out before, my friends. Now, I'm not insinuating that these, fats made from carbon in the atmosphere are going to be inherently unhealthy, but I think there's reason to question whether or not they're going to be harmful to our health because, butter is a little bit more complex. It's not just fatty acids, hydrocarbon chains. Yeah, that is the mysterious and different fatty acids that are enriched in butter are in fact hydrocarbon chains. But there's conjugated linoleic acid, there's butyrate, there's all sorts of different things.
If you're thinking of selling your house, want to know how much more you could be getting by using this brand new way to sell? The real estate market
in butter that you're not going to get from just thermal chemistry and pulling carbon from the atmosphere. So, yeah, I think if you're going to put this in
Pretty sure that's what margarine is. They invented margarine during the Second World War to like grease their cannons and stuff, and then they found out we could eat it, and they made it taste like butter. But it's just basically pretty sure it's just carbon from the air type thing. So they've already been doing it with margarine.
Packaged foods, it's probably fine, right? But I think really incentivizing people to never eat butter again and to eat this fake butter. We've seen this story play out, my friends, with margarine. We know how this story ends. We've seen it with cottonseed oil. We've seen it with canola oil. We've seen this with artificial sweeteners. Like this is, humans are the smartest dumb animal out there, right? But because we think we can always sort of manipulate nature and not suffer from the unintended harm. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where this all goes. I think that maybe this is going to be better than partially hydrogenated cottonseed oil or canola oil. It sounds kind of alluring, if we don't have to grow corn, because the sad reality is if you drive in the Midwest or all throughout the U.S., there's just corn everywhere. So if we can get back some of that land and use that for regenerative agriculture, and these companies can pull carbon from the atmosphere to make butter and butter-like compounds, that's probably fine. But as long as you're putting that in food that people know to be unhealthy to begin with, which is the junk food, that's probably okay. But if we start really influencing people, shifting their mindset into thinking this is better than actual butter or tallow or lard or what have you, I think we're setting ourselves up for another story of unintended consequences, and we know how that ends with risk of non-communicable diseases. So I would love to know what you think about this video. We actually have Bill here. You can see the dad bod in full effect here at minute 121.
It has a very complex composition when it comes to fatty acid. What do you think?
That's great. Oh, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that wasn't butter.
Okay, that's great.
What shall we try next?
Next is burger and fries. So in this, we have a different kind of formulation. So it's our savor tallow formulation. And then we have fries.
So it's interesting. These food scientists are always trying to recreate animal-like products, right? Whether it's the chicken nuggets that are not chicken, it's the burger that's not beef, it's the cheese that's not cheese, it's the milk that's not milk. Right? Why don't we just stick to what has worked for humans for a very long time, my friends? When we run into problems when we do this, if you look at oat milk, it has to have a fat in there, and it happens to be from canola oil. It has to be sweetened with something like sugar. Why don't we just eat the real things? Why are we trying to make tallow from air? Right? It's not going to be tallow. Anyway, let's see Bill here as he takes a few bites of French fries and fake burgers with fake tallow.
And then we have aioli.
That's quite good.
Here we are looking for juiciness. We're looking for what we think is so far missing in the alternatives we find on the market.
I gotta say, it looks pretty good though. It does look good, but I'm like,
All of them are using plant oils. So like the melting profile is different, the mouthfeel is different. And so how do we get to something juicy and drippy and craveable? So now we have the end of this journey, which after burger, we're just gonna get ice cream. And this is what they're looking for, something which is fully pleasurable and past beyond what we find very.
So he goes on to eat the ice cream and has a little narrative here about this company, Savor. I think that technological advancements are interesting. They're curious. They're worth following. Again, if these products are going to be made into junk food, I think that's fine, right? It's probably better than the soy and canola that's and corn oil that's everywhere and ubiquitous and sprayed with chemicals. If you can pull this, make these hydrocarbon chains, and not have to spray with glyphosate and Roundup and pollute the soil and everything, I think that's probably honestly a better solution. But if we're going to try to make the argument that this is somehow nutritionally superior to what animals and nature provides, I think we're in for another 90-year experiment that may not end well. I would love to know what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments.
yeah, thought this was interesting. That's it. Have a good day, guys. Peace.